Hello, and welcome back to the Arn Eddie Experience. It's been a while. I'm Arnold Furious. With me this evening are Eddie Sideburns. Hello.
Hello.
And Aqeel Khalid. Hello, Aqeel.
I'll get a name in the title on. I'm also here.
It's in the title. It says Arn Eddie Experience brackets plus Aqeel.
Fine, whatever you say.
Okay, all right. So historically, this show's been dedicated to football, but it's time to take the show in new and frightening directions. We all know each other because we're professional wrestling fans, first and foremost. That's how we know each other. So we're going to go and skew off in a new direction, which is the direction of professional wrestling. Stop laughing, Eddie. Today we're going to bring you the WrestleMania weekend experience. The highs, the lows, the Cody roads. Before we start into the WrestleMania madness and the 20 shows that we sat through and consumed, well, I did. I don't know about the other two. I need to quickly address where I've been for the last 3 years. So in 2020, just before the pandemic happened, I wrote an impassioned plea for fans of independent wrestling to fight the WWE in their takeover of European wrestling. And I meant it. And I intended to be there sort of in the trenches, as it were, in the front lines fighting the good fight. And then, then the pandemic rolled round and then Speaking Out happened. And a lot of the key cogs in the indie wrestling business kind of got exposed for the truly horrible human beings that they actually are. And to say I got a little bit disheartened with wrestling would be an understatement. So these people, I'm not going to name any names here because I don't want a lawsuit, but there are people that are so despicable in the professional wrestling business. They managed to drive me, somebody who's watched pro wrestling since 1985, away from the business. So I know I'm not the only one who felt that way, but I just had to go. So recently I dropped in to watch WXW's 16 Karat Gold from March of this year. And it was like 3 years on from when I walked away. It was kind of a nice little point in time to return to. And there were signs that wrestling was getting back to where it needed to be on the indies, that it was healing. I loved seeing Shigehiro Irie get his moment in the sun. I love seeing the career renaissance of Axel Tischer, which is something I never thought I would say. It was great to see the progress made by a lot of young wrestlers who were rookies when I left, like Peter Tahani and the other Hungarian guys. So I thought it's time to give it another shot. Also, I don't want a bunch of rapists and pedophiles to drive me away from professional wrestling. So fuck them. It turns out I just needed a break. So the break's over and we're back. For those who don't know the history that we have between us here, for the past 2 years, I've been doing a football-based show with Eddie. So it felt natural to just kind of continue that. And Aqeel, we used to run the Rear View Reviews wrestling podcast, which stopped existing like 3 years ago. And we had a lot of fun doing it. So Aqeel is now back as part of the Arn Eddie Experience, and I welcome him in. So it seemed only natural to kind of combine those two elements to get to something that felt right and new. And we hope we can bring you something good. All right. We're going to start out with WrestleMania from this year. What better place to start? What would you like to talk about first? Hi, Ollie.
Just sort of talk about Cody Rhodes.
All right. That's perfectly organic and natural.
It's not like we planned this or anything. No.
It's not like I wrote it on the spreadsheet to be the first thing. So.
No, I mean...
Spreadsheet, because I'm not on the show, on.
You are on the show.
You just don't have a name yet.
An hour of Logan Paul
name.
praise.
Oh,
Ask Alan.
I will get to Logan Paul. Logan Paul is legitimately great. But first, let's talk about how Cody Rhodes was completely buried. And this is one of the dumbest moves, legitimately.
Also funny,
Yeah, very funny.
mean-
Obviously.
For a counterpoint.
I mean, absolutely, it was funny. I mean, he's the man who crossed the divide, the first one. Vince was like, "Oh, I know what I bought. I know what I'm buying, pal." They do the whole finish the story. He gets injured. He comes back. Oh, it's all on Cody. Cody's gonna win, and then suddenly it's like, nope. We're just going back to the same Roman Reigns match that we've seen every single pay-per-view, but just added Cody instead of Kevin or whoever else it was being. Yeah, and it's so funny because night one ends on such like a high note, and you're like, oh yeah, and then night two is completely like someone throwing shit in your face.
But as Ollie says there, should we be letting the story play out here, or well, no, basically.
Yeah, because the story had reached a very sort of natural end. The Usos have lost the tag titles. Cody's a year.
Sorry, Alan just said something very funny. Cody Rhodes exploded his tit to get rubber chicken on the big stage.
King Alan. You know this chat is very distracting.
Alex makes a good point if it was because I think it seems like it has been the plan all along.
I know it felt to me like Cody got done at the last minute there because he had that sulky face on. The sulky face when somebody's going to lose and they only get told about it at the last minute, so they're really sulky.
Thanks, baby face.
Yeah, they should teach that at NXT. That should be part of the performance center. Is they teach them not to look disappointed before the match has happened, because that's a bit of a giveaway.
What I was saying before, I think the story had reached a look. I actually like the Bloodline story more than a lot of people in our circle. I think there is something there, but I think it had reached a very sort of natural endpoint. Like I said, Usos lost the tag titles. No one's allowed to be at ringside with Roman. The whole story is this man is a bit stuff around him to actually succeed. So now that he's lost everything, he loses the title. It's a year on from Cody Rhodes coming back from last year's WrestleMania, just come back from this dumb tit disaster. It felt like a very much natural, okay, we've got our next guy now, let's see how far he can get. So to be like, no, actually, we need him to lose more so that when he wins later, it's bigger, just makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, they did the same thing to Owen Hart, and let's see how that played out. So I think my biggest issue with the whole thing was they obviously didn't bother changing the booking the night after, because like Brock Lesnar goes and destroys Cody Rhodes like the night after Raw. That would have made perfect sense if he'd won the title, because he's not allowed to challenge for the belt while Roman's champion. So it'd be like, now he's got the chance to win the belt back. He goes and attacks Cody, but instead Cody lost and he got beaten up by Brock.
I think the commentary was stating, or I think it was maybe on Friday, that the reason Lesnar beat up Cody was apparently because his match was on first at Mania, and it's like, this makes no sense since the majority of Lesnar's angle has been he fights, he leaves, he doesn't show up, he wants paid, he wants to fight, and then that's it. It just seems like, I said, with the whole rumors of obviously Vince coming in and tearing up the script and them having like 6 different scripts on Raw, it does feel like it's really a weird point to do. And if Cody's not going to win, then don't have the whole statement be finish the story if he's not going to finish the story. It just seems very dumb. You've got Rhodes to WrestleMania.
Finished his story,
right
and his
there.
story ended with him being pelted by rubber chickens. So
one rubber chicken.
That might happen to him for the rest of his career now. Like he'll go to different places and people will throw rubber chickens into the ring. So that's the end of his story. It's not quite a world title, but it's it's something
Something.
for him to
Like-
work on.
You know, rubber chicken weight belt. You know, Cody's got it all at that point. I think one of the things as well is obviously they're doing the angle where Cody is going to address his future, on Raw, and it's like, mate, don't try this here. We know you've signed a multi-year deal. It's not like you're suddenly gonna go and bugger off now. It's just, you know, and if he does, and I think the worry is that he's going to probably bring the Codyverse from AEW into WWE, and that's just going to easily be that's just going to be a poor. I don't know how those fans will react to that, because it was shite, and it was shite AEW at points.
I mean, for somebody like myself who basically hasn't watched AEW because it didn't exist when I left, what is that?
So I'll let Aqeel explain it.
There's two different things that sort of exemplify the Codyverse. First of all, he was basically not involved with any of the main storyline, so main world title stuff. But he was also still very clearly the ace. So the whole promotion was basically a Cody Rhodes promotion, but he was not interacting with anyone outside of his storylines, which didn't make any sense. And also, he's very much Dusty's kid. There's a lot of melodrama to everything he does. There's a lot of, oh my god, this is the time I'm going to retire because I lost this match, and a lot of excess that didn't really work in AEW, which is a bit more
so
toned down, I suppose.
Yeah. So there were storylines that, as I said, you had the AEW normal storylines, and then you had whatever Cody was doing. And you had Cody, okay, so Malachi Black comes in and he feuds with Malachi Black. They do that whole separate thing. He feuds with Tony Agogo. And he feuds with him. He cuts a promo saying that he's in essence solved racism by marrying Brandy Rhodes and then having an interracial child. That's a true thing. That promo is one of the worst things you'll ever see. And at this point, it gets to the point where this is where the Cody going heel, but technically not wanting to be a heel, starts to build up because the fans are getting sick of it. The majority of his feuds are new person debuts, beats Cody, Cody goes away, Cody comes back, Cody gets the win. That's it. Moves on. And it was that's why it was all separate. People got sucked into the Codyverse, but then the Codyverse had nothing to do with the AEW storyline because in essence he had done the stupid thing where he did the gimmick where he would never challenge for the AEW World Championship because he lost a match, and he kind of just booked himself into his own realm. You know, Arn Anderson had a gun and a Glock. You know, it was all self-contained bullshit.
Yeah, it sounds like I missed a hell of a ride there.
Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it really, really didn't work. Like the Agogo stuff really, really didn't work because it became a sort of weird America versus the Britain story as well. It just didn't really work. I liked most of the Malachi Black stuff, but even that got a bit silly at points.
A lot of fans of the Glock in the chat there.
Promo,
yeah, I mean,
legitimately, top 5 promo in AEW history is Arn Anderson saying how if he was going to get carjacked, he would pull out a gun and shoot the man trying to carjack him, and that's what makes him better than Cody Rhodes.
I'm also going to shout out another promo that was absolutely awesome, and we'll never see this man again in AEW, and we absolutely should. There's that promo, and there's the Ace Steel promo where he convinces CM Punk, and it's so good. But we're never going to see Ace Steel back in WWE again, and it's like two of the most random people. But there's just, as I said, and he was booking himself into a corner. He was maybe losing to people he shouldn't have been losing to people. And it was just, and you know, I was at the Chicago Thanksgiving one where people were throwing the weight belt back at him because he threw it into the crowd and stuff, and it was pretty much very clear that like Cody's just not for this anymore. It's just he's done what he's booked himself into a corner. He's not wanting to go back.
It made sense to me, him going back to WWE, because he'd gone away, made himself into a bigger star, and then come back. And the story being like he's come back because he wants the title. Are they looking at him and going like, if he wins the title, then is he just going to leave again? And they don't want him to?
Maybe I think maybe some of them are looking. Maybe some of them are looking like if he wins, then it's AEW have done a really kind of good job, and it's the AEW they've kind of overshadowed more than anything. I think some people were worrying about that, but I just think it's Vince wants easy.
We're not going to push WCW in the invasion because we beat them sort of mindset. Cody is now your guy. He feels like the biggest star in the company, so you put the title on him and see how far he can go.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like, I mean, look how Sting was booked when Sting was in WWE at that point, and he just got even though his company had died a long time ago, they were still like, oh, we're just going to make
They're
sure.
still mad about it, yeah.
Because the thing is, they do hold grudges.
Yeah, but I think the difference here is that Cody Rhodes is a WWE guy. Like, he came through their system. He was there for, 10 years, and then he left, and then he got over, and then he came back again. I thought that's the kind of guy that Vince was into.
I mean, he had Drew McIntyre for a while, and then look what happened to Drew,
I mean, Alan makes a very strong point that if they weren't going to do this at WrestleMania, then they might as well have given Sammy the belt last month or whenever it was.
I mean, there were so much arguments on social media about, we can't have Sammy win the belt because Cody's getting the belt at Mania, and it's
but he didn't. Which I think is a bit of an issue.
And that's the consistent. It was like, we need to have this guy win. We cannot have any interference within this massive Roman Reigns title reign. And it's like, you could easily have Sammy win the belt. This is a company that in essence loves to make moments. You can easily have Sammy win the belt. Roman can win it back at some point in between there and then you can do your Roman Cody match. But this is a company that changes creative on a consistent basis, and for that time that Triple H has been in charge, you think, okay, we have some kind of steady creative, but he still, I think, falls into traps that Vince falls into.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very strong point that Mania is, if you're going to have the face win the big one, it's WrestleMania, and they got that right on night one. But I saw someone on Twitter saying, when has ever a satisfying story had a happy ending? I'm like, most of them, if not all of them. There's been the odd occasion where the heel still winning is quite satisfying, just because it was the wrong guy. But it's the brain worms to actually tweet something like that and not realize that the basic structure of a story is that the hero wins at the end. That's how stories work.
Cody's still going to be the one to beat Reigns for the title. It's just not going to be as meaningful because it'll be at SummerSlam after 6 months of Cody being a loser instead of being at WrestleMania where it felt like the culmination of everything.
Yeah,
just of Cody, of the whole story.
You talk, obviously that Cass tweeted their message there, but obviously Mania is the kind of go home where you need to have the babyface win.
Yeah,
the last 3 Manias, the bad guy has went home and won because Roman has main evented the last 3.
Which has made it even more relevant that it's this is the time to pull the trigger on it. What are they going to do? Wait another year for him to lose?
Well, there's the thing is, it's like, how long is this title reign planning on going on for?
Well,
What
I
are they
assume
trying to
they
gain?
might as well go now and try and break the Bruno Sammartino, at least his second run for time. He's on like 900 and something days now.
Yeah, like 956 or something. By the time I think he gets to Backlash, he will be at 1,000. But he's not working Backlash, So this is the thing. It's with Cody. As I said, you have a guy who's bought in. You have a guy who's, the house show sales have increasingly went up because of Cody. He's the top guy. That's one of the main reasons why, put the belt on him. But, with Endeavor coming in, there's a lot of, he's not good enough to work Backlash. With Endeavor coming in, and obviously what's happened there, and Vince, back in, has there been many changes about this discussion, or?
Well, Vince just shouldn't be involved in the creative process. Like, he signed off on this a while ago, and he had put it at peace that he was done with the creative side of things, and he was done doing it. And it was only because of this merger going ahead, and the merger would have gone ahead earlier if he hadn't have been accused of whatever he was accused of last year. I don't want to use words that could potentially get us in legal trouble, because I can't remember what the wording of the accusations was. But essentially, he's a bad man who's done bad things to lots of women.
But the merger wouldn't have happened if Vince hadn't had his accusations. I think the merger is a way for Vince to solidify his position at the top of WWE without having any sort of amount of scrutiny on him, because he's part of a bigger company.
I just don't understand how he's been allowed to weasel his way back in there.
The way
people just get away with things, isn't that the way it works?
Well, from what's been said is Vince was happy to walk away, and Ari Emanuel was like, "I'm not letting you go away anytime soon."
Yeah, that's what I heard when they interviewed him on. Is it on?
It was a
CNBC.
CNBC, and he was looking like Dick Dastardly.
God, he's a cunt.
I don't believe any of that he was ready to walk away. He'd handed over creative already. This is all Vince just saying stuff so Wall Street doesn't think, oh my God, this man, this...
watch it.
This bad man who's back. That's a problem. This is all sort of... He's working.
Like, he is one of the worst people in wrestling, so why is he in charge of it?
Money. That's really it, more than anything.
Bastards. So let's take a look at the rest of the Mania shows. I feel like if we're looking at highlights, there was the tag that headlined night one, and the Gunther, Sheamus, Drew McIntyre three-way, which was, I'd say, easily the best match of the weekend. And Charlotte and Rhea Ripley, I thought, was really good. And obviously Circle 6.
Yeah, Circle 6.
And Ring of Honor.
Yeah, I mean, I think watching, because I haven't watched a lot of WWE product in a while, I think watching the Drew, Walter, Sheamus, Triple Threat. Yeah.
God, get with the program.
Oh God. I thought that was probably one of the best matches I think I've seen in a WWE ring in quite some time. It started off a little bit slow, and the crowd were obviously quiet from the match before, which kind of helped with the kind of how, stiff they were with chops and things like that. So, I thought that was really, really an enjoyable product. But yeah, I thought that was one of the highlights for me of watching the 4 matches of Mania that I watched.
Yeah, we only made Eddie watch the things that were worth talking about, so he hasn't seen any of the bad stuff. I think over the 2 days there wasn't a lot of bad stuff, but it's just the fact that the second night just felt so much worse than the first night from a booking point of view. Whereas like night 1 just felt like a solid win, like all the way through. It just felt good. Even the
Night 1 is in a top 5 Manias of all time, maybe top 10.
Oh, it's definitely strong. Alan's made the point that Shane McMahon dying. I would say that was
that happened.
funny and was one of the highlights of night 2. Blowing out your quad on a leapfrog is always it's always amusing. That and the fact that Snoop Dogg called an audible on it and literally went into business for himself to get that big Mania win. Like, what a worker! What a worker!
Yeah, I mean, I think the Shane doing the same injury as his dad did was just almost as funny, but
yeah, he only blew one quad out. That is,
yeah, only the one.
If you're gonna blow your quads out, then do them both.
Yeah, I got real emotional watching the night 1 main event. I think Kevin and Sammy against the Usos was really quite well done.
Yeah,
nice.
I think
nice tribute to Reseda with the PWG logo and the Super Dragon mask on the gear.
Yes, Super Dragon made it to WrestleMania. It's long overdue.
He did. But yeah, I thought that was really good. I thought that was probably one of the standouts of what I saw.
Yeah, I think my big issue with the main event on night 1, I thought it was great, but it did kind of suffer from the false finish business.
They sort of went straight into like the third act of the match, where it was almost immediately false finishes, and I think you're right. It did hurt it a little bit. I think you can have an argument that it was slightly better than the triple threat from night 2, though, just because I think, like Eddie was saying, the emotion of the match sort of drove it through.
Yeah, I think probably me missing the year of build-up beforehand probably didn't help. I'd seen bits, but not really the kind of depth that everyone else was experiencing when they were watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they started off with the heat first. They didn't go into it was like the Usos just beating down Sammy for quite a bit. And it did say, one of the main things I said was, I think Sammy is quite possibly one of the most probably one of the best workers in WWE at the moment. From what and that was only seeing a couple of things. It kind of again alludes to the fact that, well, why was he not given his moment in Montreal? But again, this is a company with so many changes in their heads and refusals to bury in and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that was he was it was incredible, and Kevin is a great worker. So I thought Owens and Zayn, it was really, I don't think again you're always gonna get false finishes and a lot of stuff like that and things, because this is when they do it. They kind of ease off for the majority of the year, and then when it comes down WrestleMania or one of the big pay-per-views, it's all kind of systems go. But especially since the Usos have held the belts for so long, it kind of made sense to do the kind of, they're not going to give out just yet, they're not going to give up just yet, and then finally it happens and stuff. But that's just my opinion.
I enjoyed it. I think it was probably my third favorite match from the shows. Like I just thought that Rhea Ripley Charlotte match was just really, really good.
It's sort of, I tweeted this at the time. It was structured sort of like a New Japan main event, and there was a lot of kind of perfunctory work at the beginning that you into the rest, and then you get to a really, really hot sort of last 10, 15
I
minutes
think
or so.
they did the same thing with Asuka and Bianca on night 2. It's very similar kind of structure, only they weren't as hot for the finish, so the match wasn't quite as good. But very similar setup where it's like they do a couple of big spots early, but a lot of it is just building.
Like really, really hard hitting as well.
Yeah, there was some good. I mean, from watching that match again, watching that match for the first time, it was the Riptide from the Ripcord or whatever it was called from the top was quite good. There was some quite. I don't know. I think it was a good match, but I just felt like because I'd seen maybe a promo building up to it, where I didn't know how to feel about. I don't know. The face heel kind of scenario in this match was a bit off for me. That's just my opinion because obviously, I felt it was a bit off, and I'd seen there was a promo that Charlotte cut on at SmackDown where she was talking about nepotism, and it felt like she'd kind of really lost from the crowd and stuff because they were just wanting her and stuff like that, and it just felt very off. So when I watched this, I'm like, I get obviously she's supposed to be the good guy here, but really you're supposed to be the face, but it took me out of it a little bit. There were some good spots and there was some good moments, but I just felt out of it.
Yeah, I haven't had that background, so like I didn't really have that. I just was going on the quality of the match in a vacuum, and I just thought it was really good, like for compared to other things on the show. But yeah, in general, I thought the standard of the show was really high. Obviously, Logan Paul and Seth Rollins had a good match as well. And there was on night 2, there was that night 1, there was that crazy tag scramble thing that just felt like an excuse to get people onto the show, but banged for like 8 minutes. So.
Logan Paul match, legitimately one of the most fun matches I've watched in a while. It's absolute nonsense, but I absolutely loved every minute of it. The KSI in a massive prime bottle, biggest pop in my house all night. Genuinely amazing. Beautiful, great, incredible. Genuinely incredible. Logan Paul has over-delivered so much in this run. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen like 3 of his 4 matches, and he's been really good in all of them. Like he just seems to get it.
What it is, a lot of these celebrities don't quite get the more character side of it, and obviously because he's a man that does social media, I think he sort of gets it a little bit better than your random singers or whatever.
Yeah,
pushing forward.
He's more of an athlete, which helped.
Well, he's done a couple. Obviously, he's got amateur wrestling background and things like that. And he's been, he's had 4 or 5 matches so far, and I think he's obviously got the athletic background, and because the athletic background's maybe helped him, and especially when you've got a good dance partner in there who's kind of helping you, like Roman at the Saudi show and Seth at this show, he's clearly, he's clearly quite good at it. He is probably one of the best.
But he doesn't look out of place, does he? Which is,
no. And the thing is, it's the charisma as well. The YouTube generation of kind of people have, they know they've got to bring a lot of charisma to keep a lot of names and a lot of subscribers and things like that. So, he's he's kind of suited for this really quite a lot.
Yeah, that's fair. Is there anything else about WrestleMania that you want to? Sorry, Aqeel, go ahead.
There's the Logan Paul praise that Alan was asking for.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's just for Alan.
He's not even here. He's not even here to listen to it. So there we go. But yeah, I think like in terms of Mania, one thing I do want to bring up is and it's going to get even worse as we carry on into this new Endeavor WWE merger. The corporate sponsorship during this really irritated me to no end. I know it's something they've got to do, but like every single replay, this replay is brought to you by Intuit.
Let me just interrupt you there, Eddie. This podcast is brought to you by Tango.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry,
it was
carry
just.
on.
Oh,
And
it was
Big
just
Corny.
It was just so poor. I just felt so annoyed as like listening to this. You know, there was some bits in mine where it was like cutting away to show it, and they're like, "This is brought to you by Frank something or other," and I'm like, "Oh, for God's sake, you don't need to name the thing every time. You can name it once."
Well, the Cinnamon
You know.
Toast Crunch sponsoring child abuse was an absolute highlight of Mania weekend for me. Got my best numbers on Twitter by pointing that out. So that worked
I didn't
well for
even.
me.
I didn't watch that match. What?
Ray Dominic was sponsored by Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and there was
Christ.
a giant Cinnamon Toast Crunch mascot that watched. Yeah, I'm just numb to advertising now. I didn't really notice it as much as you guys. Like the Cinnamon Toast Crunch one, obviously. That was very, very.
And Mike's Hard Lemonade sponsoring like
That one.
The triple threat match was quite over the top, to the point where they faded away from like Gunter holding the belt up to a Mike's Hard Lemonade logo, and I managed to screenshot it in mid like fade. So yeah, there was quite a lot of that. It wasn't as jarring. Like technically, I thought the like WWE's main show was better put together than like NXT, which is just horrendous for stuff like that. Not just the advertising, but the cut. Everything's got to be like half a second long. I was legitimately nauseous watching the NXT show, whereas the main show felt a lot less like that.
Like, I know they're doing, you know, for the Rumble they did Mountain Dew blackout match or whatever it was called, and you know that's where we're going to, lights out or whatever it's called. That's where we're going to. I just, you know, I said it's because I don't know. The consumerism is just becoming more and more, and as kind of Lucas says there, I would not be surprised if this, you know, with the UFC, I think as well. I know obviously we've got much, but this is Nick Khan's doing as well. And I think they're just going to maximize more and more with this.
I think they should have a battle royal replacing the Andre, where everyone dresses up like corporate mascots and the winner gets to sponsor WrestleMania. And it's a shoot.
I do also want to say, now that I've mentioned
being totally no,
completely ignored.
I know. I found it funny. It would be won by The Fiend, who should have been on this show. This show needed more Fiend. We needed more lore.
No.
We needed more Fiend lore. Where was the Fiend lore?
I'm so glad he disappeared and wasn't on this show. Anytime I don't have to watch a Bray Wyatt match, it's a good day.
I mean, it's such a weird thing. That's like the pet project of the Triple H era is Fiend lore, because they brought in a guy who's like a writer from Marvel, and he's like, it's all gonna make sense.
Oh, he's getting
it's all gonna make sense. And like Bray Wyatt comes out and he's like, oh, I'm so happy to be back, and then he cuts this like shoot almost promo about being back, and then Uncle Howdy appears, and then Uncle Howdy's gonna fight Bray Wyatt, and then Uncle Howdy attacks Bray Wyatt, and then they do this pitch black match on the Royal Rumble sponsored by Mountain Dew, and then Uncle Howdy, who's been consistently attacking Bray Wyatt, helps Bray Wyatt defeat LA Knight in the pitch black Mountain Dew match. None of this makes any sense. He was supposed to fight Bobby Lashley. I'm really quite glad it didn't happen. But, you know.
Well, what did happen on WrestleMania weekend was Ring of Honor putting on arguably show of the weekend with Supercard of Honor.
Yes.
And this is the first Ring of Honor show that I'd seen since Tony Khan took over running the promotion. I thought it was great. Like, I really enjoyed the show. Like, as a whole, and with like individual matches and stuff, really delivered. Like, did you watch the whole thing, Eddie, or did you just watch a couple of matches?
I watched a couple of matches. I watched kind of what we discussed. I need to watch all in full. But Tony Khan's Ring of Honor is great. It's honestly one of the wildest rides in wrestling. You know, he brought back a man whose brain got taken out of his head and then put on a plaster and then put it back in, and now he's the pure wrestling champion.
Well, they opened the show with like El Higo del Vikingo and Commander doing the kind of crazy shit that it reminded me of when Dragon Gate was in Ring of Honor, or when ECW had like their first pay-per-view and they needed something with a bit of zip about it and brought over the Michinoku Pro wrestlers for that. It kind of felt like one of those moments where it was just like, here comes, this is craziness. And the only thing that was bad about it was the amount of time it took like Vikingo to set his spots up and stuff. But the spots were absolutely out of this world. And that was like, that's the opening match. Like, kind of like, all right, let's see people follow that. And it was just really good. Like, the whole show was good, start to finish.
It was like the whole show sort of felt like what people thought AEW was going to be at the beginning, where you've got the crazy luchadors, you've got the Joshi wrestlers, you've got the American Indies style wrestlers, and you've got the New Japan guys. It's a cool little blend of everything. But yeah, I haven't seen all of it just yet, but what I've seen is absolutely incredible.
As far as like shows go, I think it's the only one where I didn't hate anything. Whereas like everything else that I've watched over Mania weekend, something popped up. I mean, I watched like 20 shows, and almost everything there was a weak link in there somewhere. For Ring of Honor show, if you ignore the pre-show, like the worst match had Hiroshi Tanahashi in it, which so that's got to stand for something.
I mean, the pre-show had
not too bad.
The pre-show had, Konosuke Takeshita against Willie Mack, and for all those Slim J maniacs, you got Slim J against Stu Grayson. So, I think, as I said, the blend of stuff on it is great. Like I said, having Yuka Sakazaki against Athena, and then having Samoa Joe against Mark Briscoe, Aussie Open, and La Faction and Gorbinable in the Reach of the Sky Ladder match. It's a great blend, and it is kind of like old Ring of Honor now, which I think is really exciting.
Question from Lucas here: is 2 hours of TV a week too much? He's saying if it's an hour show, he'd watch it.
I think
it was a 2-hour show, because a 1-hour show. Sorry, Eddie. I think a 1-hour show would have been perfect. First of all, no wrestling TV show should go longer than an hour. That is my strong belief. But regardless, it's because it's a lot of just sort of matches. It's almost like a slightly better 8 dark. So I think cutting that down a bit would really, really help. And people that are watching Ring of Honor are watching AEW, Dynamite, and Rampage anyway. So it becomes, 4 or 5 hours of Tony Khan versus TV you have to watch. It's too much.
Yeah, well, I don't watch any of the rest of it, but like we watched Ring of Honor this week, and I thought that was a pretty good show for like a 2-hour show.
I think, I mean, I think the good thing is with the shows that what he's doing on the shows, it's they work. There's not any massive things that don't need to be there. It's like let's hype up, some people. Let's do a good main event match with Miya Yamashita and Athena. Build her around that. Sprinkle in a couple of stories, but nothing too major. Focusing on other stuff. I like it.
If anything, though, like for a 2-hour show, it could probably do with more promos because like there was not a lot of talking. There's a lot of wrestling on there, and I know they're doing that because it's Ring of Honor and they want it to be like wrestling, like you're here for the wrestling. And 10 years ago, I'd have been like, yes, let's do this, all wrestling. But you kind of need that to use that time to build people up a little bit more, and a good old-fashioned promo is going to get them into the seats for the shows.
That on, because I know you haven't watched a huge amount of Dynamite, but that is a very common criticism of Dynamite as well, that there's not enough promo time. So I think it's just a case of, for whatever reason, Tony Khan as a booker doesn't really like spending a lot of time on promos.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be promos, but it needs to be something that gets a character more over. Because like they're doing a pretty good job with the in-ring. I got no complaints about the in-ring, but like sometimes you just need to get the characters a little more over. But like not what WWE does, because WWE takes that and takes it to a far extreme, like right in the wall here. My hand's in the wall. Where Pretty Deadly were the hosts of the NXT show. So we got a promo for them before they started, and then they had promos in between like every single match. After the first two, I muted the television. I was like, that's it. I'm sick of you guys. I don't want to hear your voices anymore. And that's the far other way, where they're just beating the dead horse with the promos. It needs to be somewhere in the middle. I want to know who the person is and kind of care about them. Like they got Eddie Kingston over because he talks. Kevin Owens got over because he talks. Sami Zayn got over because he talks. It works.
There are certain people in that company who can definitely work and not maybe talk, but they need to kind of explore that a little bit more. Like Ethan Page is a great talker, and he's with Stokely Hathaway, who's a manager who's a great talker. And it's like, okay, then maybe take Stokely to someone who maybe can't talk as much, and then hopefully can kind of build off from them and learn from them a little bit more on how to talk. I think there with Dynamite, I think Tony sees what's happening on the other product and kind of goes, right, okay, well, there's like not much wrestling. Like Raw did a commercial-free hour, and I'm pretty sure out of that commercial-free hour there was like maybe 1 minute 40 of wrestling, and then maybe an extra 5 just going, and then they have a match which is Austin Theory versus Rey Mysterio, and as about to start, they go into picture commercial just as they're about to end that first hour, and it's like,
ridiculous.
I think he sees that and he thinks, okay, this is what they need. They want wrestling. This is what people want to see. We will do promos, and when they do, promo battles or face-offs and things like that, they are extremely great. So I don't think there's not many promo offs that don't land very well in AEW as much anymore. So yeah, I think he just sees that, and he's just kind of in his head of wrestling and doing promo videos and stuff like that, and kind of stuff where need be. But again, to each their own, really. He has a lot of television to book. I think with ROH though, he doesn't have as many restrictions as he would because he's not airing it on TV. It's it's his own streaming service with Honor Club and things like that. Whereas with Dynamite, he probably has so many restrictions thrown at him with that. So yeah, we'll see what happens. It was a good show, really good show. I would say that.
Yeah, the pay-per-view was excellent. And it was like $20 for the ROH on Fight TV, and I really enjoyed it. And it was great to watch it live as well because like we had to get the interaction with people watching a live show is something I've not had for a long time. And I know Aqeel, we're in the same group chat for the old website, which it hasn't been that fun for 3 years, right? it's just not been that much fun. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that element of the weekend as well, watching shows like Ring of Honor live and getting to just interact with people and just it's a really fun show as well. Speaking of the weekend as a whole, there was a bunch of other shows on. We're not going to go into any kind of detail here because there were so many shows. So we're just going to throw out a few recommendations and things that probably you don't need to see. GCW ran a lot of shows. Some of them were quite good. I'm going to say Bloodsport. Like if you're just going to watch one show they did, I would say Bloodsport would be it. WrestleCon, who ran not so many shows, like 3 of them. They had a super show which had 2 really great lucha matches on. Aramis Ray Horus and Galeno Del Mal, who I love. Aqeel's a big fan as well. Against
Dr. Wagner Jr.'s massive fridge-sized son.
He's just so big. He's like 2 people wide that way and 2 people wide that way. And then he does like topes and stuff. He's amazing. So
Reincarnation of Super Porky.
So we're going to get into more Galeno Del Man over the coming months, I'm sure of it. On the other team, Aries, Laredo Kid, and Latigo, and they just had a really fun match. And then the main event was Vikingo and Commander again, but with Black Taurus as like a heel foil, which I actually thought that match worked a little bit better than the Ring of Honor opener. Because, the Commander does his rope walking business, where he rope walked past the one guy and then dived onto the other one. So it actually made sense that he was walking along the rope because he wasn't just hitting the spot on a guy. He just walked past him and hit a spot on the other guy who wasn't expecting it. So that worked for me.
I'm not as into Commander as a lot of people seem to be. The rope walk is cool, don't get me wrong. But once you've seen it once, it's kind of it.
Yeah, I get that. I think that's what is a good way to open that Ring of Honor show. It's like 2 guys who haven't got a lot of exposure in the States, and it's just like, here's all their best shit. Like, bang, 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 like one after another. And that really worked. As I was saying, GCW ran a lot of shows, and some of them stank. So I wouldn't recommend Jimmy Lloyd's D-Generation F. From memory, everything on that show was bad apart from May Saruga. Spring Break was actually okay, but it doesn't feel like a big thing anymore. It just feels like another show. It happened to be a show with Kota Ibushi on this time, but it didn't really blow anyone away.
Problem with Spring Break now, because all of indie wrestling now is meme wrestling, so it doesn't really work for Spring Break to sort of lean on that too much.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was writing about it. I was like, it used to be like this special thing because it was all this weird, crazy stuff, and now every show is weird, crazy stuff. So it's like, well, what's the point of Spring Break?
It had such an allure because of the video packages and the hype. And it said, like when they did Walter versus PCO, or they had Great Sasuke there, and they did like the clusterfuck and things like that. And there were so many kind of out there things that it did. Yeah,
it doesn't feel as creative now as it did when they first started. It's like they've put less effort into it. But also booked Kota Ibushi. Whereas, like, I think Janela made more out of other people that he wrestled. Whereas Kota Ibushi was just like, well, Kota Ibushi's coming back, so that's all I need to do. And then where's all the Where's all the creative hype for it? It just wasn't. It didn't feel the same.
Specifically, the issue is also because he hasn't wrestled a match in, what is it, a year and a half at this point?
Yeah, it's like 18 months.
Yeah, you just don't know what you're going to get. So you have to be. I get not hyping him too much just because it's things to join out. It's unlikely because it's Kota Ibushi, but not wrestling for 18 months does stuff to a man.
Yeah, not him. He's a lunatic. He's an absolute lunatic. Doesn't surprise me. This man once shot himself with fireworks outside the Resgal. So
That's true.
Yes, GCW, a bunch of other shows. Emo Fight was terrible. World on Lucha had some decent stuff on it. In general, I think it's very telling about North American wrestling at the moment that a lot of the top performances this weekend came from either luchadors or people from Japan. And they were coming in, parachuting in, having a great match, and then going home. Whereas, like, you look at all the locals, what were they doing? Like, I don't think there was a standout match, really. I think probably the best thing I saw where it's just all local talent was on the first night on that Santino Brothers show, where it was, I can't remember the names. It was the Bomb Squad, Cam Gates. And they did a whole thing where, like, the whole match was an angle where the guy was obviously going to turn heel on the other guy at the end, but then he did, and it was great. So that was a good match with a good story. And that's the only time any of the local lads did anything particularly worthwhile, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I just think JCW has kind of went down I'm not interested really in anything they do as much.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought it as that fucking door promotion. That's like in my head, it's like that's what they are. They're the promotion with the stupid door gimmicks. But it feels like the shows, they tried to be quite versatile with how they presented the shows, but like what they're actually doing is just putting a bunch of the same people in different wigs, essentially. It's like, here comes Mike Bailey, but now he's sad.
That's what you gotta do, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think they had a particularly good weekend, GCW. Like,
and then
when you compare to when you look at the hit rate, you look at the WrestleCon shows, and their hit rate was way higher. I hated Prestige by the end of the night, but they did book Aja Kong. Tokyo Joshi Pro in that building, the New Japan Impact shows in that building, and the WrestleCon Super shows in that building. So they only had 4 shows, but none of them stank.
I believe that's the PWG venue they've got now. The
Globe,
which
yeah.
Really wonderful looking venue.
Really good building.
So I'm glad that got a lot of work out during Mania week. I'm glad the Tokyo Joshi Pro and DDT kind of had a good weekend. They seem to get a lot of attention. A lot of people don't like Tokyo Joshi Pro, or kind of are very much not really going to touch that. But you know, they do have some great quality talent like Yuka Sakazaki and Yamashita and Mizuki and Shoka Nakajima. So they do have some great talent. There's some people, there's some people they're building at the moment in time and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm glad. And DDT, is a great kind of joy of everything. So I'm glad they did quite well audience wise and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Yeah, the DDT show was a little bit of a letdown for me personally. I really, really liked their 2019 WrestleMania weekend show, and it didn't quite hit that sort of level. I think the difference is the 2019 one had one really, really standout match, and this year
was that Takeshita and Endo. Or am I misremembering?
I thought it was Sasaki, but you might be right. Or did Sasaki cash in the ring gimmick? It was definitely Takeshita. But anyway, they had one really, really great main event. and I think that was missing from this year's show. The Chris Brooks Yoshihiko tag match was really fun, but it wasn't sort of quite great top level main event match. That makes sense.
It was Sasaki. I looked it up.
Okay.
I like the idea of giving Akiyama and Kingston a tag match. That was quite
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, it's fun little match. Fun little match.
But yeah,
Yes, that was good. And also shout out to Circle 6 for all the chaos they provided us with over the course of the weekend, including, but obviously not limited to, a stripping mime, a Clockwork Orange House of Doom cage match where the cage only had one side. They had a terracotta pots match. They had a match where somebody got thrown into a dumpster and that was the end of it. Pinned in the dumpster.
They had a show where Minoru Suzuki was judging people on karaoke. They had an entire show about drugs.
They were just sitting around smoking weed.
Yeah, which got rained off. But yeah, they were quite over as a as a kind of side attraction to the Mania weekend for sure. And I think
that is essentially WrestleMania the weekend. A hot hour of content for you there. We also quickly need to talk about AEW, who've decided they're going to run Wembley Stadium.
Well, I mean,
that is a big building.
It's a very big building. It's if they fill it out, which there's no way they'll fill it out, you're talking 90,000 people, which is crazy.
Anything over, I say, 25 to 30,000 is a success for them.
I think they'll do more than that. 25,000 people signed up for the pre-sale, for the code for the pre-sale. I signed up for the code for the pre-sale just because I want to be reminded of it because I'll forget. But if you get that just for the starters, and then you get a bunch of other people going later when they go like, well, I'm just going to knock the price down a little bit. I think they could legitimately do something in the region of like 50, 60,000.
Probably.
Which would be enormous.
That's sort of what I'm thinking. I think 65 is what I'm going with. If I was,
it depends who they get. Like if they put CM Punk on the card, if they kind of borrow people from New Japan who can kind of help ship tickets, if they get specifically, I'm thinking of Sasha Banks. You put Sasha on a poster, and you're going to get some extra people in just because she's on the show. Moxley, if he's on the poster, then you're going to get extra tickets.
It has to be all hands on deck. This was
it's got to be everybody.
The biggest show, potentially the biggest show they're ever going to run. So you have to properly, everyone you can get, give CM Punk whatever the fuck he wants, let him punch another buck if that makes him happy, and just bring him back.
I mean, I think you've got to, as well. I think they'll probably use Zack Sabre Jr. and they'll use Will Ospreay to the full maximum. Because they won't bring. Now the thing is, an Ospreay or a Zack Sabre Jr. will not bring in thousands upon thousands, as in like 20 to 30. But they, if you say you do Ospreay versus Omega 2 or Sabre Jr. versus Danielson,
I don't think any of that is going to. None of that's going to draw with the rubes. You want big names, and you want them in the up to the hilt. So you want Danielson on the show. Ideally, you want to get somebody, and I'm not saying it should be Goldberg, but you need somebody like Goldberg to just be on the show, just to get some eyes on it, just to get people to go, oh shit, Goldberg's on that show. Let's go see him.
The easiest way to do it is, Sting retirement match.
Oh yeah.
If you put Sting retirement match, I think a ton of people will go and shift tickets with that. He's had success at Wembley before, so
That was sort of Dave Meltzer on most recent Observer Radio was sort of pushing that idea as well, that that's what they should do. It doesn't, it doesn't quite make sense to me because Sting retiring in Wembley is a bit, I don't know,
Well,
it doesn't feel right.
I don't think that makes that much difference. You just need to get the faces on the poster. You want to get
Yeah.
people going like, God damn, look at this lineup. Then the matches take care of themselves. Like, given the work rate is not an issue for this company, they can put on some great matches. People know they're going to be great matches. It won't. The people they are now after, the 25,000 people that signed up for the pre-sale, they're going to go. They're in anyway. The numbers that you need to make up to get like a 60,000 attendance are going to be people who see a poster and go, that's a guy I know off TV and I'm a fan of. I didn't realize this was happening. What's going on? And the idea is to try and drag in people who would not normally watch AEW. Then they watch the show and are like, this is great. I'm going to watch this all the time, and kind of increase the viewership like that. But then for the live show, they need to draw in people who are not watching it to make it up to that big number. And I know they did numbers of like 100, I think it's 140,000 people watch the TV show over here. So they do have the numbers where if everybody that watched it went, they'd sell out. But that doesn't happen. So you are looking at trying to get in people who wouldn't normally go, and with that, you need the big names.
it just depends on who the names are. Now and again, it depends on the names. The names will, Punk. Yes, I'd love to see Punk back consistently. I would always like to see CM Punk back in wrestling. I don't Goldberg maybe, but then again, it just depends on how you're planning on using Goldberg, I guess.
Oh, he just squashes somebody. You can go on second or something and squash somebody. Who cares? At that point, you've already got the people in the door. The draw when they're in there is that the show's really good, but you want to get them in the first place, and you get them in by promising them big names. So you need the big names. So I'm thinking about people who can still actually wrestle and are under WWE contract.
Yeah, and I mean, Lucas obviously says, that's another thing. Who do you think is going to challenge MJF for the title at All in Wembley? Pac, that could be a decent shout.
It's 4 months away. There's no guarantee he's still got the belt, but assuming he has.
For the story, I think they'll keep the belt because they want to do the whole bidding war for 2024, which they really should try and stray away from. But yeah, I mean, I think I could see Pac absolutely. It really just depends. The only Brit rest people that are going to go on this show anyway are the ones who are going to be on Dark or
Yeah, the only
whatever.
people that should be on there are Pac, Ospreay, and Sabre. Like, there's nobody else who should be anywhere near the show. Sorry,
Nigel.
No, he's going to be on commentary, I'd assume.
Yeah, but it's a big show. Do you try and convince him to come out of retirement?
What, to do a magic show? He can warm the crowd up doing magic tricks.
You could
saw RJ City in half.
Do you aim your target demographic mainly at the ROH nuts and the ones who are in the Olympia Stadium, and you do Danielson versus McGuinness?
No, people are just going to turn up anyway. People will turn up. It doesn't matter what the card is. Eventually, you will have to put on some great matches on there, but they will do anyway. They need the big names to get people in the door.
Yep, and there's a big name mentioned right there, Paul Burchill on Dark. Absolutely.
Oh, Paul the Pirate. Yeah, I'd book him.
Get Paul the Pirate and his FWA gimmick. Get him there. But yeah, that'll be interesting. And speaking of people who turn up at shows, in the best segue possible, even though it was a really awfully done debut, Switchblade Jay White is in AEW. I mean, if you told me that a week ago, I would have said no. He's destined for, McMahonisms for a good couple of years. But apparently, he signed a multi-year deal with AEW. Aqeel, What do you think about that?
I think he's going to be really, really good, to be honest. I don't know if you saw any of the little bit of stuff he did at Impact, but
I saw a bit of it.
he's like built for American TV wrestling. I don't know what it is, but he's absolutely perfect. He's a guy. I've never been a huge Jay White fan myself. In fact, I really, really hated him at one point. But he's a guy you properly build around in the main. Like, he's the guy who should be facing MJF at the next pay per view, not this bullshit. Four pillars.
Four
thing.
pillars. Yeah.
He should be just absolutely shot to the top of the card. He's gonna do very, very well. I didn't hate the debut as much as some people seem to have. Because I think you have to, if you've got, for me personally, if you've got Juice Robinson there, sort of playing this Bullet Club character, you have to address, well, Jay White is here as well. Do we need to do something there? And then you cycle him into something actually major and important.
Yeah, and I mean, I think with the Bullet Club turmoil that's currently going on, which again, you know, there's every year there's at least some kind of Bullet Club turmoil. I think it's really interesting to see how they kind of play that off, because obviously he's left New Japan, he lost the loser leaves. You know, he's done it. He's lost them twice. You know, he lost to Eddie, and then I think he did one. No, did he do one? Yes, he basically just gave up. Yes, he lost to
He lost to
what's
Hikuleo
his
in
name?
Japan.
Hikuleo, yes. So he's lost there. So it's like he'll be representing AEW when it comes down to Forbidden Door 2. And then obviously, and we might get into it just a little bit with David Finlay's Bullet Club now, because, you know, musical chairs is the game when you're the leader of Bullet Club. I think that will be very interesting to see. Arn, did you see much of Jay White when he was over in the UK or on television as much?
I saw him when he was over for Rev Pro, up close and personal, as it were, and I thought he was not very good. I've watched him in New Japan quite a lot, and I don't really like him. I think he has the capacity to turn me around, but like, I just don't see him as a big signing.
I mean, that's disrespectful.
I assume that Vince took one look at him and went like, "Guys, your contract, pal."
Well,
probably heard the accent.
Sorry.
Probably that was what Rover said. Sorry, Aqeel.
So the rumor seems to be that with this whole sale, there's a bit of a hiring freeze. So anyone that was about to be brought in can't be brought in anymore.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me at all. But yeah, very disrespectful comments there from Arn about the King of York Hall, Jay White. We'll no longer be listening to Arn for the remainder of the show. Moving on, so just kind of... Oh, yep, sorry, Aqeel.
I was just going to say, when did you become the host? I thought Arn was the host. What's going on?
Arn loses this very quickly, and I try and keep the train on.
It's really hard to keep a handle on Eddie. He gets out of hand.
And I like to keep the train tracks a rolling. And yeah, sometimes Arn wants to take by the show. He can. It's no problem. But yeah, Arn.
Yeah, I can just kick Eddie out if he gets really out of hand.
He really can. But yeah, I think Jay. I kind of echo Aqeel. I think Jay White is a good signing. He seems like he's very much, you know, on board with the plan. He's someone who wants to be there, whereas there are a couple of people who seem like they've only signed there because they didn't like how it was at the other place. And that's what he needs. He needs people who are wanting to be there, who are going to sign in and buy into what Tony's saying.
And not shot at Miro.
There's not just Miro, Andrade as well. I don't know. I think the problem with Miro is, you know, he seems to have had communication. The communication's broken down. He didn't want to do certain things, which again they're allowed to do. They're well within the right to say no. Yeah, but like, it's a business. Come on, just make money. And Andrade as well. Andrade seems a very, you know, he seems to be a bit, but then again, his role has kind of been taken over by Rush. So, you know, there's all that ends well with that. So yeah, but I think Jay White will be very interesting to see how it goes for the years to come. He'll be one of those challengers, maybe to MJF, along with Adam Cole, and obviously what they do with the four pillars.
Okay, and we also had another show which kind of dropped in yesterday, which was New Japan's Sakura Genesis, which originally wasn't on the spreadsheet, but it was kind of dropped on there because things happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen none of Sakura Genesis, so
I've seen pictures and stuff, but I've not watched a single bit.
Okay, so I watched it. I watched it today because I didn't have anything better to do. So yeah, Mercedes Mone, I think, is one of the major talking points in New Japan at the moment. Alan Cheapshot got his way, and New Japan has a women's division. They have a women's champion. So round of applause for Alan. Well done for changing Japanese hearts and minds. Well done, brother. And yeah, they signed Sasha Banks, and she's now Mercedes Mone. Her theme music is dreadful. Legitimately top 5 worst theme musics of all time. But her in-ring has not been affected by the move to Japan. I know she's a big Japanese wrestling fan anyway, so she's just kind of slotted right in there. Had a cracking little 3-way dance with Hazuki and Azumi from Stardom. I really rated that. I don't know if she's had a match before. I think that's the first one she's had in Japan. Like she won the title in California, I think.
Yeah, that's
Correct
right.
me if I'm wrong. But yeah, that was a fun match. They also switched the tag titles on this show. Aussie Open are now the tag team champions of New Japan, which shouldn't be terribly surprising because those belts switch like every 2 months. But I'm hoping they get like a really good run. And it was, I think, easily the best match on the show. Kyle Fletcher kind of bust the back of his head open. And they kind of told a story around that, and it was big fighting spirit victory from him, like fighting from underneath. And it's difficult to make Goto and Yoshihashi like the villainous champions, but they kind of ended up doing it because he was hurt. So that worked, and it was good. It was just all round good. And then they had Sonado win the title in the main event.
Gato, monkey's paw, mate. Monkey's paw. You wish for something, you get it, but then on top of that, you have to get something bad.
Yeah, but he's hot now, Eddie.
I just don't think Sonada's very good. And like with the criticism that I had there for Jay White, I think Sonada is much worse than Jay White. Like from a personality standpoint, from an in-ring standpoint, he's just boring. He's boring and terrible, and I've booed him in person. And I just don't understand why they put the title on. Now they've done it with both of them as well, because like they put the title on Evil, and I was like, Evil? And now they've done it to Sonada as well. Like I think Gato might have actually had his brain removed as well. I think he might have been headbutted somewhere, and he's had to have his brain removed, because that's the only way I can think of a reason for them actually going ahead with this.
I think I will always represent the Hashi agenda in terms of loving Yoshihashi and the fact that he's a high quality wrestler. He's great. And if you've not watched New Japan recently and then come into it and you go, oh, Yoshihashi's a boring wrestler, you've not been watching.
I didn't say he was boring.
Matches.
I said he was bad.
He's not bad either. He's actually quite good. He's improved heavily. But going to the point of Sonada, it seems like if you leave Los Ingobernables, you immediately, have more success. Evil left to join Bullet Club. He ended up doing quite well for himself. Sonada decides that he doesn't want Naito anymore. He wants Taichi, and four guys who look like they're divorced dads joined together in a group. And to become just 5 guys. But yeah, I don't know. It won't. I get it. Obviously, he's no longer he no longer has a beard and looks like some moody young man. He's got shorts now, and yeah. I don't know. Maybe for me, I just don't see it. might take a while for me to see it, but
Well, they did the same thing with Hiroki Goto. They had him like get a new finisher, change his ring gear, like he comes out all covered in kanji, looks completely badass, and they just lost. So
to be fair, he lost, and then he went and joined Chaos almost immediately after being jobbed out by Okada. So
yeah, so he even became their stooge. So he's like, I've been beaten so badly, you now have to tell me what to do because I am incapable of doing it on my own.
if we're giving Sanada a title reign, then this will lead me back to my new campaign, which is give Tomohiro Ishii a title reign. Because this is the only if this is what we're doing now, then Ishii should be very much allowed a reign at the title. And I'm sorry, I'm not
I
saying
don't see any excuse as to why he can't win. He fully deserves a title run. Even if he just wins it and then loses it on the next show, I don't care. He needs a title.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Ishii for champ.
He is the GOAT. He's the same height as a goat as well, to be fair, but but he's great. He's the best.
But yeah, I do get, obviously, I think Monkey Buckles on Twitter responded to Arn about it, and I do get it. I think Aqeel will agree with me here. I think this is probably the first time in quite a while that New Japan has seemed a little bit more hot, especially with the angle with ELP and the Jay White, the ELP and Finlay thing, and along with this as well. Like, the highest praise I saw was Striga saying that, like, one of the best angles in New Japan of recent being quite hot was the ELP being kicked out of Bullet Club angle. So I'm really interested to see what happens and where it goes from here.
I think it sort of started around Wrestle Kingdom, where it really felt like New Japan was back. And yeah, look, I haven't seen the show, but there's a lot of positive buzz around the company right now, which we haven't seen for about 3 years. So can't complain.
Well, I think the trouble is that they need to build to replace people who they've lost at the very top. And it's so hard that they used to have at the top of their card Tanahashi, Nakamura, Suzuki, like who else was there at the same time? Like Shibata is not really there anymore. And then they've essentially lost like the top tier. And now they've had to rely on guys like Jay White and Sanada and Evil to kind of carry the company while they develop something better. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. Like nature abhors a vacuum. So the vacuum that is Sanada will get replaced eventually.
And there's some very interesting stuff coming up because obviously it seems
AJ Styles. Thank you.
We're doing a lot of, there's a lot of rumors, and obviously it seems like there is going to be another All Together show coming quite soon, which will be quite interesting if New Japan, Noah, All Japan, and all these companies are again working together. One of the hottest things I've seen recently, just quickly talking about Japanese wrestling, was some of the All Japan Noah kind of invasion stuff. Has been quite decent, so I'm really interested to see what matchups they throw and where this goes. But yeah, I'm really interested to see. I think, as I said, Japanese wrestling has become a bit more hotter at the moment, and New Japan obviously getting a lot of buzz around it is obviously quite helpful for everyone else. And this All Together show might do something quite special as well. So yeah.
Okay, we're going to need to wrap it up because we've been going for quite a long time. Aqeel, did you want to tell them about cool matches that are coming up? Sneak that in before we leave.
I mean, there's a few interesting things coming up. The only thing I think is really worth talking about right now, the first of the three Triple Manias for this year is next weekend. I'm going to make you guys watch a lot of Lucha. Just be prepared. The only interesting things for me on that is, so last year they did a tournament, a mask tournament, where the whole tournament lose their mask. They're doing a similar thing this year, but it's a tag tournament, and so the losing team has a Puestos match at the end. And you've got LA Park and Roosh versus Blue Demon Jr. and Diamante Azul. in the first round of that tournament, which could be amazing. You've got Jun Kasai's got a singles match next weekend. Pretty rare for Jun Kasai to have singles matches this nowadays, so that's always worth pointing out. And really, that's sort of it. There's a lot more matches I've noted down here, but they're not really. Now that I'm looking at them again, they're not as exciting as I thought. To be honest.
The only thing I would
I'm really
say
excited
is,
sorry, Eddie. The Mercedes Mone Mayu Iwatani match that's coming up at Stardom is in like 2 weeks. So
right.
that might be fun.
I would say, I think the Kushida versus Macklin match might go under the radar there. Because that's for the belt, given the fact that Josh Alexander's had to relinquish it. And there's one of the best angles. This is quickly. There's one thing, and then we have to answer a question from Lucas. There's the moment where he has to relinquish the belt, and his son tries to stop him. And I don't think the son knows what's going on, but it pulls on the heartstrings very much so when you see a young boy go, "No, you're not getting rid of this belt." But it kind of has to. So I'm very interested to see how that goes. Impact may have a decent year. I'm kind of interested to see where they go.
All right, so we're gonna answer a question before we head off, and it's from Lucas. He wants to know our dream G1 competitor for this year. I'm gonna say Mark Briscoe. Is that something that is possible? I don't really know what the working relationship is there. I mean, obviously Tanahashi was on the Ring of Honor Supercard, so I'm guessing there's a working relationship. He's not going to do any more tag teaming, so go for it. Mark Briscoe. That's my take.
It could work, because I said the relationship is there, so I wouldn't be surprised in seeing it. I'll let Aqeel choose his, because I'm still having a tiny think about mine.
Yeah, Danielson, I guess. It's not a sexy pick. It's not a sexy dream pick, because it's probably going to happen. But Danielson, definitely.
So I would say I've got a Japanese one and a foreign one. I'd say Claudio. I think Claudio is built for the G1. And I think in terms of Japanese wrestlers, for my own enjoyment, I would either see Kento Miyahara or Katsuhiko Nakajima. And then the out there one, which won't happen, would be Takuya Nomura from Big Japan, but that's not going to happen. So, but yeah, I think
if Miyahara, if Kento was on there, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, Kento is over. He was getting people. He confronted Manabu Soya at what was it? He confronted someone at the end of it during a Noah show, and he was getting Noah people to chant his name. So he's consistently over wherever he goes, and I think he would fit well within the New Japan. Yeah, Jarrett's too old, body broken down for that. Just wait till he appears at Wembley, and I lose my mind. But yeah, that's who I want to see.
Okay. Well, that's going to do for this week. We've gone like an hour and a half, so slightly longer than anticipated. We should be back at some point next week. We haven't quite ironed out the date yet, but this is going to be an ongoing thing. I was going to play the music, but it's all like football clips, so I guess we just go.
Just say goodbye.
Yeah. Well, thanks both. It's been a great time, and I look forward to the next one.
Perfect. Bye-bye.